Welcome inside the Red Earth Production Studios for this edition of YBMcast, powered by Game 7 Baseball, Game7Baseball.com. Winter workout tour, full swing. We have been having some fun. It was, we got the Mac and Sights out this past Monday. That's a great tour stop. Nick Crouch, Danny Lake, the great guys. Go watch that. Learn about Mac and Sights, what they're doing over in Kansas City. Then coming up this coming Monday. What's the date on that, Drew? What is February what? What's Monday? Forgot. 5th. There it is. February 5th. Inside Edge. Tour stop number 2 there in Kansas City. We'll have that posted up on Monday, February 5th. Looking forward to that. Great group of guys over there. We'll talk a little bit more about that here coming up. But make sure, stay tuned. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. Share this out with your friends. We got some great content over this next little bit. We've been live with the Winter Workout Tour. Game 7 Baseball has been great. Dave and Dave in Nashville. Dude, Kevin, we got to meet Howard Johnson.
Oh, Hojo. Very nice.
He runs that program, Hojo Baseball, in Nashville. Showtime Sports Academy. Andrew Beeman, the director of baseball there, and it was fortunate because Howard and his son were there. I guess Howard lives in Florida, and he had just happened to come up for a hitting clinic, and we got a chance to meet him and talk to him. It was a lot of fun.
Very cool.
I thought it was, man. That was killer. Midland, Tennessee, that was a great visit. Good people over there. So we got those coming up. We got one more tour stop coming up. We're going to be headed over to Kansas City for the MoCan All-State preseason showcase. There it is. I'll spit it out in a minute. And that'll be finishing up. We've got a couple more tour stops live. We're going to be over at the Sports Barn in Illinois, the new one in Wood River. We're going to finish up over at the Field House with our good buddy Matt Shadow from Midland Baseball. So, man, hit the subscribe button. Great content.
Busy.
I tell you, it's a lot of fun. I love the preseason like this. You know, as we moving toward baseball, Kevin, it's a lot of fun this way, right?
Absolutely.
And there you go. So make sure this summer we're going to be out at events with Game 7 Baseball. Check out Game 7 Baseball, Dave and Dave, the new facility over in Warrenton. Go check it out, man. They got turf coming up. It's starting to come around. We're going to get some cameras out there and show the progress here. Not too much longer, but Game7Baseball.com. As always, Mr. Kevin Moulder, the guru, Prep Baseball Report. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Doing good. Full steam ahead, and this is a fun month of year, busy month, but good month. And we're a couple weeks into the showcase and event scene, and kind of right in the middle of it now.
You seeing some dudes, some people off the radar coming up? Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a good start. I've been down to Springfield. Great venue down there at the Marucci Clubhouse, and then this past weekend, I was in Cape Girardeau for the Missouri Bulls, which was a really strong event. Had a couple future games guys from last year at the event, and Ryland Mills and Noah Johnson and some other up-and-comers. So it's good. And then, as I look forward towards this weekend, we got the Missouri preseason All-State this weekend out at the Sports Barn on Saturday. I have a scout day with the Naturals on Friday and one with the Rawlings Tigers, the Rawlings Tigers Training Center in Chesterfield on Sunday. So really big weekend, and it'll be a lot of fun, and going to get to see a lot of great players. So I'm looking forward to it.
That's cool. I like that one. We're going to have to get, when we get a little bit more into this, that Cape Girardeau area and all that down there, that's one we don't get to see a lot of. And it's great to see and to learn more about those kids down there as well, huh?
Absolutely. There's some good players down there, passionate about baseball. You're going down. Aren't you guys going down there this year to Jackson?
Yes, we are.
So that's 10 minutes from Cape Girardeau, more or less.
Yep. Yeah, we got a rematch. We did CBC's now going down to Jackson this year. So we'll have that CBC Jackson matchup at Jackson's house, and I'm looking forward. You've hyped it up so much, man. You know the way I'm pumped.
Okay, I hope it doesn't disappoint, but it shouldn't. It's a good venue, Whitey Herzog Field, good venue, and they do it right.
I believe you, Kevin. I don't think we'll be disappointed.
So this area back here is basically production. They do a lot of the artwork back here. They do the production. So any of that stuff that comes in off of, we'll say, our fanwear stores, stuff that comes in off the team stores, a lot of the coaches wear, a lot of the last minute, hey, we got to have it in the next 10 minutes stuff. That's all comes back here. This area is where all the day-to-day stuff that comes in really goes through. The retail store is its own little entity. This is where the real work is done.
So today, though, folks, we're going to get into this little topic here. We're going to talk a little bit about the top conferences around the state. Now, we talk about teams, but where are they located? What conferences are they in? And I know sometimes it seems a little maybe, I don't know, not as maybe interesting to talk about this, because in the end, you know, we get into district play, right, Kevin? And that's where everything kind of goes. But a lot of times these conferences, these teams are in the same district as well, correct?
Oftentimes, yes. But they do seem to shuffle around a decent amount, which makes it tough to follow. We were talking about this before. Now, I know what the MCC conference is. That's been tried and true for a long time. Like, that hadn't adjusted really. The other ones switch around quite a bit, so it can be hard to follow. And what the disappointing part is, sometimes it takes away from some rivalries. But let's get into this. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, I want to start. We're going to start here in the Southwest because there was a big shakeup this year. I try to keep up. I think the Ozark Sports Zone down there, they do a great job covering sports. You know, Ned Reynolds has been down
the Ozone,
right? They've done this for a long time, and it's good information. Problem is, there's still certain things you just can't get, but it's still, if you want to follow sports down in Springfield, it's a great resource. Or in the Southwest area there. So we'll want to start down there. We'll head up to the Northwest, come back over into our neck of the woods as we finish up. But I got to get this pulled up here. There it is on my handy computer. There was the Central Ozark Conference added 4 teams: Lebanon, Waynesville, Central, and Parkview. The Central Ozark Conference is kind of a newer conference, and they only and what was interesting is Parkview and Central are added for everything except for football, which I thought was interesting. You know, usually football is the big one, right? But this is what this conference ended up being here. There's 14 teams, 12 with baseball, and 14 of them, you know, it's all baseball. Kickapoo, Glendale, Nixa, Republic, Webb City, Joplin, Carthage, Willard, Ozark, Neosho, Lebanon, Waynesville, Parkview, and Central.
It's a great conference.
That's a strong conference, isn't it, Kevin?
Yeah, and it does make some sense why football wouldn't be added. A, they don't play as many games as the other sports, and B, there's size considerations. We could have a whole show, and I give you my theory on what, in my opinion, college football should separate from the rest of the NCAA, and it should almost be treated like the NFL. But that's another. That's not even a show. That's just off air. I can break that down and why that should be a separate thing. So I get it though on the football and why they might not be paired up there.
Dang, we're gonna have to do that. Yeah, that's a good show, Kevin. I love that. Well, and to your point, you have Glendale, Willard, Lebanon, Parkview, and Central. They're all right in Lebanon being the bigger of the four with 1,136 enrollment. The others are 1,026.75. Glendale's 1,098. So they're all in that level. Everybody else is Webb City's 1,011. Neosho right in there, but the bigger ones 1,300, 1,400, 15, 6. Joplin is 1,664. That's a big school. And they're the biggest. Kickapoo is at 1,507. Knicks are right behind at 1,478. So I think that's the tough thing too. Sometimes with conferences in high school is how do you find those places because the enrollments are so different, correct?
Right, and then they also fluctuate and change, maybe not so much on a yearly basis, but if you look at them, every 6-8 years, there is going to be some significant fluctuation from school to school, certainly.
I think it's interesting, and this is something I want to touch on real quick because it's got to be difficult to maybe sometimes when they redistrict a school district. That means they change the lines for where you go to school and who does what. Because it's, some of the older schools are people moving into those neighborhoods. It's older neighborhoods, established people live there, they own their houses. Are you getting that influx of, and I think that of new students and why populations of some of those schools go down, right?
Absolutely. And we're going through some of that, closer to home in your next, the GSC with North Point. District boundaries have been adjusted. And, it's my understanding that North Point within a couple of years, maybe 5 years down the road, is going to be the largest of them all. So things do shift. And that's, when we go through these conferences and talking about the changes, certainly there's good reason to why they get shifted around.
And I think that's interesting because we'll get into that conference here and we'll talk to that when we get to the GAC because I think that's the conversation. But staying here, so you have the Central Ozark Conference, and honestly, year to year, just in baseball, Kickapoo, Glendale, Nixa, Republic, Webb City, just in those 5 teams, and then you add Willard and Ozark, those 7 teams. Then Lebanon makes it 8. These are all top baseball programs right now in the state, aren't they?
They are, and we've talked about the Southwest region being really strong, and that's a really tough conference, and the advantages are you're going to be battle tested. I remember Lebanon coming up here last spring to Vianney, and they had a really gaudy record and performed well. But they got thrown in a district all the way up into St. Louis, which was kind of interesting. But you got to see, the Lebanon outfit, and they were really good. So that's a really strong conference.
I think it's one of the toughest ones that I've seen. As we go through this, I'm going to put that up there right now because just in those, and Webb City was in the Final Four, Class 5 last year. Glendale's been right there, and I think with Sebastian Nortman, that team is loaded again. I think they'll be right there in the mix again as well, right?
Yeah, and Mark Ross, who's heading to Central Arkansas, they have a very nice team. Um, Joplin's had very strong teams. Yeah, that's a stout district or conference. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
without question.
because Webb City, Willard, and Glendale usually that's top Class 5 teams right there, and I think Ozark is Class 6. Carthage, I've seen their record and whatnot. They usually have a pretty solid record in that, from what I've seen. Waynesville, I don't know about too much.
And you look at it from like a Willard's perspective. They're battling in there with a lot of the larger schools, and they're going to compete most likely in 5A this spring. And we another show, I guess, which is my one point of contention is I don't like how they district teams multiple weeks into the season. I feel like that's something you should know before the season. I honestly think you should have that set at the start of the school year or within a couple of weeks of the school year. But that's not the case. And, but you do get challenged in your conference, and then Willard gets to play 5A, district. And that's certainly, in my opinion, a benefit because they playing high level competition, not a competitive advantage, but just they're competing, they're playing against strong teams, and they always put together Coach McGee always puts together a strong schedule. But I think that iron sharpens iron, and that'll help their ball club when it's all said and done. And Glendale, same boat.
Right, and just on that note, our opening live stream Missouri Showcase game, it opens the season. Top 10 teams, in my opinion, Camdenton, Willard. We're going to be at Willard High School with Camdenton versus Willard on March 19th. That's a Tuesday.
Wow.
Mark that down. That's a big one.
Very nice. That is a big one.
That's a good way to open the season, right?
It's a great way to open the season.
So, and then, with the 6A schools in this conference, Kevin, Kickapoo, Nixa, Republic will probably they might slide to 5. I don't know. They're 1,148. I don't know where the lines are. I don't. So, could be. But, of course, Joplin, Ozark, those are teams in that Class 6. I mean, they've been right there. Nixa, of course, Final Four team last year as well. And it was a tough district between all these teams.
Can see why.
Yeah. So this conference, in my opinion, this COC, Central Ozark Conference, it's loaded. We're going to, and not to mention, March 19th, Willard at Camdenton. Then we're going to stay there on Thursday, the 21st. We are going to live stream Nixa at their house versus Springfield Catholic. So
wow, well you got a good week of it there. It's going to be a lot of really good players, and we can talk about that, I guess, when the time comes. But that's all. That's starting with a bang for sure.
Yeah, we're getting ready to release our schedule. I got to finish up a couple things. We've been in the winter workout tour, but we're going to release our live stream schedule. This is just a little leakage. So, but then they started a completely new conference down there as well. You've got the Central Ozark Conference, then the Ozark Mountain Conference, which is going to feature Bolivar, Branson, Marshfield, Hillcrest, Carl Junction, Logan Rogersville, and West Plains. What do you think of that one, Kevin?
That's also a good one. Logan Rogersville was our number one small school in the final regular season rankings. Branson, I saw them play last season. They got a really strong team. So that's going to be also a strong conference, and
I think West Plains ought to be able to compete in that conference as well, correct?
Tank Sims, one of the top left-handed bats, heading to SEMO. Yeah, it's a really good group.
And then you have the Mid Lakes Conference. Fairgrove, Stratford, Forsyth, Skyline, Clever, Reed Springs, Hollister, and I believe that is it just says Catholic, which I would imagine is Springfield Catholic.
Okay. So that would be your smaller school conference then, and also a really strong conference. Obviously, Springfield Catholic, made their run last year and look to reload this year. And Hollister a couple of years ago was in the Final Four. So, yeah, there's plenty of good clubs in that one as well.
And then there's the one of the older ones. It's the Big 8 Conference.
That I can name for you if you need me to name the Big 8.
Go.
Mizzou, KU, Nebraska, Colorado, K-State, Kansas.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, you were close. You
Okay.
were close. Mount Vernon.
I forgot about them. Those were some great games between Mount Vernon and Mizzou back in the early 90s.
Oh, mercy. But Mount Vernon, Aurora, Seneca, Lamar, Nevada, which Nevada it got into the playoffs last year. Cassville, I think you were talking about Cassville last week, weren't you? Maybe it was somebody else. I don't know. Oh, we were in Class 4. Remember, we were talking about that in the Class 4 settings. East Newton, Monette, and McDonald County. Now, McDonald County, we've seen in the playoffs. They I don't know too much about them, but so that's down in the Southwest there, Kevin. So now you know. But I will tell you that COC I think is going to be a tough conference. It's probably one of the best in the state that I'm looking at here in that way. My humble opinion. What do you think?
I would second that. I think that's going to be a really strong one.
We're going to go up to the Northwest here. There is this conference called the Greater Kansas City Suburban Conference. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not. But this is what we're looking at up here. It's 5 divisions, okay? And it starts with the Gold Division. Blue Springs, Lee Summit West, Blue Springs South, Liberty North, and Ray-Pac.
That's going to be one of the tougher conferences in the state as well.
That's brutal, dude.
That's a stout conference for certain.
And then you have the Silver Division, which is Lee Summit North, Liberty, Park Hill South, and Staley. Also tough. Yes.
So, you think gold, silver, I immediately get drawn to the Olympics and go gold first place, silver second place. Clearly, that's not how this is divided. This is just simply a silver. It's just a different, because if you were dividing them by talent, strictly speaking on teams and who's there are teams in that silver one that would be in the gold bracket or conference.
I think they do a similar thing, and I'm going to look this up. There's certain things. I think it's a similar construct trying to fit similar size schools. And I think that's all these conferences can really do within these divisions. This is the whole conference, but you have divisions within the conference, which I understand. And you're trying to make these conference games competitive, right? That's the whole point.
100%.
And then the red division. Now, these are ones I don't know as much about, but you have Fort Osage, North Kansas City High School, Oak Park, which I've heard of. Oak Park has a pretty good program, don't they?
Yes.
St. Joseph Central, and Truman. So that's the red division. The white division is Belton, Grain Valley, Raytown, Platte County, and William Chrisman. Now, I know Platte County.
That's pretty good because we've seen Grain Valley and Platte in the state Final Four here over the past couple of years.
And I think we saw Belton in some of the districts and beyond that. I don't know what side. Grain Valley, I think, was in class. I think they got bumped up to class 6 again.
Oh.
So I know Platte County is class 5, right? Yeah, that was where they were. So, and then there's one left here, the blue division. You have Excelsior Springs, which they were in the Final Four last year. Grandview, Kearney, which is a good program. They're constantly up in the sectionals and division playoffs. Raytown South, Ruskin, Smithville, another team you see a lot in the playoffs. And here you go, baby. This is the best name of them all, Winnetonka. Winnetonka High School. Yeah. So that is the entire conference split up in 5 divisions. And when you look at this entire conference you could pick it. Ray-Pec's probably got, their pitching is really good. Offensively, that's always, they hang their hat. They've had some big-time arms, and they still got a few left at that school. But Gold Division, Blue Springs, Lee Summit West, Blue Springs South, Liberty North, Ray-Pec. Pick it. Who's going to win that?
Yeah. Run through that one more time.
Blue Springs, Lee Summit West, Blue Springs South, Liberty North, Raymore Peculiar.
That's a stout.
That's
a stout one.
That's the Gold Division, and probably for a reason, right? With Blue Springs, Lee Summit West, Blue Springs South, and Liberty North, those 4 teams have a legitimate shot to be in the Final Four.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing to remember, this isn't done solely around baseball, obviously. So one school might be strong in baseball, weak in basketball, average in football, or great in wrestling or soccer, whatever. So it's not centered around baseball. So that's important to remember when we're discussing all of this.
And I agree. I understand exactly what you're saying. And I want to look at something here because... Nope, that's correct. Never mind. We're going to go back to where we were. How's that? Oops. So these conferences, to me, are, and I think if you look across, like at Excelsior Springs and Kearney and Smithville, those teams are consistently playing deep into the final year. Smithville, I've seen their name a lot. Same with Kearney. They were there last year. I think they lost in the I don't know if they won their district or not. I can't remember just off the top of my head, but you see them. Grain Valley, as you said. Grain Valley, we saw them in the state championships, Final Four, was that 20?
I think that was 2 years ago.
Who was that pitcher they had there?
He went to go play tight end at Washburn. I am forgetting his name.
Yeah, because wasn't that the year they beat Fort Zumwalt West in the championship? Wasn't that Grain Valley?
No, I don't believe so. No, Liberty North beat Fort Zumwalt West.
Was that Liberty North?
Yeah, it was Liberty North.
Oh, I gotta go.
100%. It was Liberty North beat Fort Zumwalt West. It was Carson Milbrandt that did it.
Carson Milbrandt. Or is that Liberty? Liberty. Not Liberty North. It was Liberty.
It was Liberty. I'm sorry. It was Liberty. not Liberty North, but it was Liberty that beat Zumwalt West, not Green Valley.
There you go. There you go. Good call, Kevin. So I think up there, when you look at this across the board, the Greater Kansas City, the suburban Greater Kansas City conference, I mean, that's rivaling. You know, when you look at the whole conference, I understand they put them in divisions, but when you look at the whole conference across that's just a big time conference. Whether it's and I'm just talking baseball. I'm just talking strictly baseball here when you look at this, because I don't know about the football. I don't pay attention to the football and who's doing what that way, but I do pay attention to the baseball. And when you see these names, to me, from gold to blue, big school to small school, these teams are playing at a high level. So I think the Greater Kansas City Conference here is really, really tough. When you go back to, and then we're going to come back to our neck of the woods, just staying in this scenario here. We're going to start with the MCC. It's only 5 schools. Chaminade Christian Brothers, which is CBC, DeSmet, SLU, and St. John Vianney. Year in, year out, you know, even though it's 5 teams, you know, Chaminade has had their moments, I guess. They're not maybe as relevant in this race at this point. Maybe they will be. But those other 4 teams right now, CBC might be, it's not that they don't have talent, but it's a lot of young talent.
Right. And, CBC was coming off, where you could make a very legitimate case. They were the most talented team in the state last year. This is a strong conference. And if I'm going to say something about Chaminade, they have certainly put out some good players, and they also probably have the nicest baseball facility in the entire state. So this is a great conference, really strong, traditional. You know, you could go year to year and say, oh, this team's a little better, that team. But year in, year out, the MCC is one of the top, if not the top, conferences in the entire state.
That's all, really. And I mean, you look at the coaches in this conference too. They're all really high-level coaches, aren't they, Kevin?
Some very, very good coaches. Obviously, have a lot of good players and a lot of talent. A little spoiler, I think Vianney is going to be way up there in the preseason polls. We've talked about them for probably 2 years now, about how, hey, they got a really young group, and they've had some freshmen on varsities, and now those kids are juniors. They have a really nice team this year. CBC lost an awful lot, but still has a lot of talent. And like you said, some younger guys. DeSmet is going to be has a really strong group this year, so that's going to be a fun one to keep an eye on. And then St. Louis U High, obviously you're looking at Andrew Dumont, one of the top pitchers in the state, and they have a couple other young players. Cole Chambers, one of the top freshmen according to our rankings in the state, is over there. Logan Studer. Charlie Ison McCall heading to Wynnewood. So you got this is a good conference.
Then if you look, we go a little smaller, the Metro League. John Burroughs won the title last year. Lutheran South, Westminster's in this one. MICDS, Priory, Principia, and Lutheran North. That's a good conference of small schools, Kevin.
It is. There's some halves in that conference for sure. They take turns, obviously. Burroughs winning the state championship last year. Westminster has had a run where they were the most dominant team in the state, and were small school but could beat anybody. They won, I think, 4 in a row, if I'm not mistaken, state championships. MICDS, I'm expecting to be really strong this year. So, yes, there's some great programs in that within that conference.
And I think Lutheran North, they had 20 some wins last year coming out of that program. Priory had beat MICDS in the I think the districts last year. So this is no small. So I think it's interesting to see that conference right next to the Metro Catholic with some of these private schools, right? They're smaller on the smaller end, but these private schools that are really making that jump. This is a really I'm going to be interested to watch these teams, and I haven't done that so much in the past myself, but I want to watch these conferences and see where these teams get, because I think it's then you set yourself up to understand a little bit more about maybe who's coming out of these districts, right?
Absolutely.
So I want to go down here real quick. We're going to stay in that St. Louis area. Now, I might be a little off on a couple of these. I've done as much research as I can, and some of this information is just hard to find, Kevin. But there's the Jeffco conference, and you have a large school side and a small school side. And this is and I don't know if you know these or not, but you might be able to. But in the large side is where Festus is, DeSoto, Windsor, Hillsborough, and Perryville. Then on the smaller side, you have St. Pius X, which is down there. I think I forget exactly where that's at, but Herculaneum, Crystal City, St. Vincent, Jefferson R12, and Grandview. Now, I know a little bit about, I think Hillsborough has a decent squad. Windsor, Imperial, not sure. DeSoto's always been pretty decent. Of course, Festus was a state champion last year.
And Festus is primed for another good season this year. They got a lot of guys back this year. I would expect them to make another good run this season.
So these schools have been around a while. What do you think of this conference, Kevin? How do you see that?
Also a strong conference. I just talked about how Festus I could see making another run at the state. Seckman has a good ball club this year as well. So yeah, that'll be fun to follow.
We're gonna go back over here. It's amazing when you start really looking at where these schools are, the conferences and stuff, and you start saying, okay, how do they set up these districts? It's interesting. And actually, Seckman's in that conference with Jackson.
Oh, okay.
And we'll come back to that here in just a minute. I gotta see. Sometimes, here's the other one that's made up of Catholic schools. Now, again, I've looked around. This is the best research I can. You have the Archdiocesan AA, Bishop DeBourg, Duchesne, Christian High School, Lutheran St. Charles, St. Dominic, St. Francis Borgia, St. Mary's, Cardinal Ritter, and Father Tolton. I didn't even know that was a conference with all those in there.
I didn't either, but there are certainly some good teams. Borgia I like a lot again this season. Father Tolton Catholic won a small school state title recently. St. Dominic is going to be very good this year. They have a lot of pitching depth. Evan Luke, Charlie Kilcullen there. That's going to be. That is a diverse conference there. That'll be an interesting look. I'll follow this spring.
And these are things that I've researched and I've done as much as I can. So I other than just calling.
If you would have told me that Cardinal Ritter and Father Tolton Catholic are in the same conference before we jumped on, I wouldn't have believed you, Brian. That one is hard for me to get my mind around, honestly.
Because Tolton's in Columbia, and all the rest.
Yes.
You know, so
And Cardinal Ritter is one block from St. Louis University.
it's interesting, isn't it? So that's one I'm going to do a little more digging on. I think it's just to see. I think it's a tough conference, though, when you look at that, though. All those schools.
It would be. Travel's not easy either.
Southeast Missouri Conference, the SEMO Conference. That's where Jackson, Cape Central, Dexter, Kennett, New Madrid County Central, Notre Dame, Poplar Bluff, and Sykeston.
So some good ones there. One thing I do like about this conference, and I've been to this, they do a SEMO conference tournament at Kappa Hall Park that is a lot of fun. They do it towards the end of the year, and they seed it, and they play a tournament right there at Kappa Hall Park in Cape Girardeau, which is a great venue. Town gets out and supports it really well. A couple years ago, I went to the Kennett Jackson game. Park was packed and was a lot of fun. So that's one I really get behind. They do it right. They cover it well. They get the news media out there. That's a fun conference tournament that they do. And that's not one to advance in the Misha State playoffs. That's just they do a tournament to decide the champion down there.
What? That's cool.
Yeah, very cool.
I see that. To me, I love that stuff. I wish more conferences would do that personally. Just my opinion. But, and I did confirm this with Coach Josh Roach at Jackson. So thank you, Coach Roach. So there's some others we can get into, but we'll save. There's some of the smaller, but I want to finish up here with the GAC, our conference here, the GAC, the Gateway Athletic Conference. There are 3 divisions, and we're going to start with the North because it's the smaller schools. We know this one. This is right now it's North Point, which that'll probably Orchard Farm, St. Charles High, St. Charles West, Warrenton, and Winfield. This is a tough conference. Agreed?
There's some strong teams certainly in there. Looking forward to following St. Charles West this year in particular. I think is going to have a really good group with Goring and Coach Nuru there. I like the momentum that program has.
Well, I'll tell you, Winfield, they won this conference. They won this division last year, the GAC conference. They won the North. They're back. We're going to open up the GAC Game of the Week, Kevin, at St. Charles West on March 26th. I believe that's the date. March 26th is our first GAC Game of the Week. It's featuring Winfield at St. Charles West. Got these 2 powerhouse
the defending
teams.
Champ versus the up and coming guys, and that's a good pick. I like it.
Yeah, because you got Winfield who won the conference, and then St. Charles West beat Winfield in the district championship game 11-10.
Hey, I like it. We get the rubber's going to meet the road. We're going to get if this is the best of 3 here, then they'll decide it there for the GAC Game of the Week. Good call.
I love that one. And not to mention...
Although I guess we're starting with a clean slate this year because that won't be the only time those 2 face off this year, obviously.
You got and a North Point in there. Warrenton is always good. They're a tough team. There's a lot of good schools here, and it's going to be interesting because I think North Point, that's going to... I think they got a lot of talent at that school.
North Point's going to be a fun follow over the next couple of years, just to watch them grow. They do have a lot of talented players. Jack Collin kind of leads the way for them, so that will be fun. And they clearly will not stay in this part of the conference in the coming years.
I would imagine not. I agree. Coming up, then in the Central, You have Washington, who won it last year. Dane Goff, that's a good base. They lost some seniors from that, so it'll be interesting to see how they retool. Fort Zumwalt South, Fort Zumwalt East, Liberty, Wentzville, Fort Zumwalt North, and Holt.
Some good programs there. This South team is going to be pretty loaded this year, and they got a lot of experience. But there's certainly some capable challengers in that mix, so that will be a fun follow.
We've talked about Liberty over in Wentzville for the last couple of years. Ty Holman's coming back off the injury, right?
Ty Holman, Braden Schnurba, there are some pieces there for certain.
Jake Greer behind the plate. They've got guys. Had a great conversation with Coach Reeder. I think Liberty, maybe they sneak up this year. They've had that whatnot. They've got as much talent, I think, as Zumwalt South. And that's when you look at this, you have Washington's got talent. East can hit with anybody. It'll be interesting to see how they do on the mound. They can hit with anybody. Zumwalt North has got some guys. Holt, they're returning, 3 or 4, 5 guys on that team. This here, playing weekend.
It's a pretty well balanced. It's a pretty well balanced conference. They're, East 2 years ago made a run at the Final Four. Holt's certainly has a really good group this year. Liberty, we just talked about the amount of talent they have. South did it last year and returned a bunch of dudes. This one, is going to be highly competitive top to bottom. There's not going to be a ton of separation between the 1 team and the 4 or 5 team.
And I think they play 10 games, because they do 5 weeks of, home and home. So you got 10 games. I could see the winner of this conference being 6-4, Kevin.
It could, and then someone could also be 8-2. But the difference between the 8-2 team and the 4-6 team won't be as big as the records suggest. Is kind of my opinion on it.
Yeah, I agree. Then the big one, it's the South. Zumwalt West, Francis Howell, Troy Buchanan, Timberland, Francis Howell Central, and Francis Howell North. And I think next year, because of the sizes of schools, they're going to switch Francis Howell North and Liberty. Liberty's going to go up to the South, and Howell North is going to go down to the Central, which makes sense, right?
Yes.
And not to mention, Bob Donahue retired. They got a new coach over there at Howell North. So that'll be interesting to see how that program, moves forward here with the new coach and whatnot.
Absolutely.
This is another one. This is why I say the GAC conference. When you go back and look at what we did with Kansas City, what we did with the COC down in the Southwest. These 3 particular, the Suburban Kansas City, and we didn't even look at the St. Louis Suburban. We'll have to do that again because we didn't get there, and I think we're running out of time. But
yeah, we're missing the Suburban West and the Suburban South, and man, it's a really strong conference as well.
Lafayette, Marquette, whatnot. We're gonna have to come back and do this. We're gonna get back. We'll get back next week and we'll finish this up. But looking at the GAC, Kevin, wow. It's, again, from the COC to the KC to the GAC, you have the MCC that we looked at.
And I assume Fort Zumwalt West won that conference last year.
Yes, they did.
And then, of course, Howell beat them in districts last year. And that's always the big rivalry. Timberland has a really good group this year, some talented players. Yeah, it's Troy, yeah, and Howell Central 2 years ago made a really nice run at things. They're really well coached. They're going to stay right in that mix and look to crack through. And when I say crack through, you're still looking up at Howell and Zumwalt West have kind of had a hold on this thing over the past few years.
I think with Central, a couple of years, they got a really strong freshman class coming in, and I think they'll always compete. I think Beckman gets those kids ready to compete, but
yes,
challenging, for maybe the conference and whatnot. I think that, we'll see what that freshman class does. It'll be interesting how that progresses with that. But again, I think it's a pick 'em here, just the 3-4 we talked about. What's the toughest conference? I don't know if you can make that choice, really, Kevin.
Can I pick in May?
Yes, because that's when I'm going to pick. Because then, then let's look at that. You look at the representation in the state championships, right?
And honestly, Brian, there's a difference between, what are we talking about? Which is the conference with the 1 or 2 best teams? Or are we talking about which one's the most competitive and has the 5 or 6 best teams? So you can look at that a number of different ways. If we're going top to bottom, I really like that Springfield conference. If we're going to say who has, it'd be hard to pick against Fort Zumwalt West and Howell if we're, looking at who's had the most recent success. And you could say the same thing over in Kansas City with the Liberty North Liberty one. Those guys have won the last 3 state championships.
There you go. So
over the last decade, you'd have to say the MCC. Like they're right there, and they're so balanced for the most part, and always put out a team that's going to be in the mix. So, it's all in the eye of the beholder a little bit.
And I think it's nice because I don't think anybody's really talked about conferences like this with baseball. I mean, you might with football, and you do a little bit, but everything gets blurred into the districts. But these teams are duking it out in the conference, and these teams want to win their conference. I talk to them all the time. They want to win their conference because
no question. And we didn't even cover 2 that are also highly deserving of being in the conversation in the Suburban South and the Suburban West conference, because there's a lot of good teams in the mix over there.
We'll continue this next week because I want to get to those, and there's a couple other smaller conferences that I have here that we didn't get to because I want to bring those into it, like we did with the Metro League. I mean, these are smaller schools. People hear, "Oh, John Burroughs won the state title." Well, yeah, because look at who they're playing year in and year out. You have to, getting guys to compete in these conferences. How do you compete with a Francis Howell? How do you compete with a Liberty North? I know public schools are a little different, but, you got to go and face Francis Howell year in and year out. What is Zumwalt West doing? What is Howell Central doing? You got high-level coaches. I think they're going after high-level coaches. I think Beckman, Perkins, Goff. You got I know I'm leaving guys out. I got to find I forgot the gentleman's name at Howell North. I'm sorry. Justin Rogers over at Troy, Timberland, Andy Zare. How do you raise that level, right, to compete? Because if you want to compete for a state championship, you got to get through Howell.
100%, or West,
right?
I think they would want to say yes.
Right now, yeah, I agree. And it may be, hey, look, I know people might say, oh, well, don't forget us. I ain't forgetting nobody. Just the elephant in the room. And it's a big one.
Yes, it is.
Just like Liberty North over on the other side. It's been hard to beat that team. So, and if you're playing that team, conferences, and I think this is where the conferences can really make, and you talk about it all the time, Kevin, with guys going and playing these early season tournaments. Why are you going to this tournament? Who are you playing? And then if you're in a conference that's going to push you to that level, that makes a big impact.
Certainly does. Certainly does.
Folks, please take a moment. If you like what we're talking about, hit the like button, share it out, leave a comment, tell us if you think we're crazy or whatnot. That's okay too. I don't mind. Maybe I'm a little crazy. I don't know. But that's what we like to talk about here at Baseball. It's fun conversation. I enjoy it there. Kevin, as always, man, I enjoy it a lot.
Appreciate it. Had a lot of fun.
Folks, we'll see you next week. Make sure, hit the subscribe button right next to it, the dinger. Get your notifications for upcoming episodes. We got all kinds of content coming. Player spotlights. We got some great stuff coming up. We got some really good dudes that we've been talking to on our winter workout tour and different places. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks for tuning in. Everybody have a great day in the Lord. All you pitchers. Kevin, give it to us.
Keep throwing strikes.
There you go. Hitters, hit them where they ain't. We'll see y'all next time.